Welcome to the Rebel Rise podcast, a place where values-driven founders on a mission for more come to connect, learn, and grow. Here, we celebrate the relentless spirit of leaders building businesses that create real good for their clients, communities, and the world. No subject is off limits, and every episode is designed to bring you clear strategy, steady leadership, and people-first operations you can actually sustain. Get ready to grow ethically, lead well, and build something that works without burning you out. Your impact journey begins right here. Let's go. Today on the podcast, I'm chatting with Vicky Winkler. She's the founder of Wildly Creative Wellness, where she helps busy women and founders move out of overthinking and into a calmer, more grounded state through the art of journaling. Her work blends creativity with emotional well-being, offering simple, hands-on practices that help people to release stress, process what they've been carrying, and to feel good in a way that actually lasts beyond that moment. Vicky's approach challenges the idea that more thinking leads to clarity, showing instead that creativity can help you to regulate your nervous system, reconnect with yourself, and lead your life and business from a more steady and aligned pace. I can't wait to share this conversation with you today, so let's dive in. Okay, Vicky, welcome to Rebel Rise. I am so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. And I already shared your bio at the beginning of this episode, and it has a lot to do with the nervous system, the things that you focus on. So before we dive into it, because I'm so interested in it, because I do a lot of somatic primal movement in order to do that. But what you do is very different. So start by telling everybody how you came into this and how Wildly Creative Wellness came to be.
Yeah. So it came sort of naturally for me, but in the sense that I was looking for something. I was looking for something to help me feel better in general. I'd done what you might say is all the right things, like, I went to college, got married, had kids. We moved into a bigger house, and I just kept thinking like, well, I'm still not happy. And I felt guilty feeling that way because I have everything that, so many people would kill to have, um, so I was just always looking for things, listening to all these different podcasts, trying all the things. And at some point I heard about art journaling, and it was the first time I felt this like intense pull to try something new. So I did that, and I just immediately just bought I bought a journal. I bought some just inexpensive paints, nothing crazy, acrylic paints, and just started going. And it was just so freeing and fun. And, it just was a way to express myself that I didn't have before. I'm not a trained artist. I come from a digital background. I was a web developer. I did marketing. So yeah, that's how it came into my life. It was sort of sudden, and just trying a million different things. And it just felt so good. And, eventually became this thing that I, realized I want to bring it to more people. So that's where Wildly Creative Wellness came from.
That's so beautiful. And I feel like this modality can be wildly overlooked. It's not something that I've really even thought about, but I can see the power in it. So just out of curiosity, because you had just said your life was the opposite, all of the tech. So I'm curious, when you were younger, were you into art, or was this in a completely new discovery for you?
That's one of those things where as a child, if you don't follow what society's typical norm of something is, then it's not encouraged necessarily. Maybe
Mhm.
not discouraged for me in my case, but not encouraged either. So, um, you know, kids who are really good at drawing, a person, a cat, a dog, something that looks like something, they get really praised for creating those things. And everyone's like, oh my God, wow, you're such a good artist. You're such a, wow, my goodness. And then there's me who I couldn't do those things, and I don't know that I necessarily wanted to try to either. It wasn't really what I was interested in, but I was always interested in things that are pretty. Like I am an aesthetic person in terms of I'd like to arrange things. That's kind of what I started to do in my parents' house. And back in the day when the TLC had all these shows of house decoration things and stuff like that. And I loved all that stuff. And so then I would start to like redecorate things in my parents' house. Nothing crazy, just like taking the objects we had and rearranging them so they looked better. So I had this artistic eye, um, but but artistry itself wasn't encouraged in me. And so yeah, it just wasn't something that was really part of my life, but not in a very forward and clear, direct way, at least. So yeah.
Yeah, and I actually love that that was your answer, because a lot of times when we talk about this adult healing, inner child work, it's coming back to the things that we used to do as kids. So hearing that it's not even necessarily that, maybe it's something you were curious about, or maybe you had some kind of attraction to something that was creative, to be able to come back and to explore that, I actually think is particularly beautiful, because we do hold ourselves back from a lot of things like you were saying. So I think that's an awesome share.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess just going back to it briefly is while it's not my focus, I mean, you can see in the video behind me, like I have some art there that I made, but it's pretty abstract. And then the art that I create in my journal, especially in the very beginning, it really just started with like, well, what happens if I move the brush this way, or what happens if I put these two colors together? It was more of a curiosity and exploration,
Mm.
and the point was absolutely not to make anything beautiful. It was just to express. And then over time, as I started enjoying it more, then I started working on, seeing if I can make a little person shape and things like that, that to me would have felt impossible, um, even just a few years ago. So
Yes, I love that. And the curiosity piece is so important, because us feeling like, especially as entrepreneurs, like we need to have the answers first. We need to have everything figured out and have everything in this perfect little list and perfect little line. And really, that's not what art is about, anyways. But I think just starting with the grace of just play with it. So when you work with clients, is that where they start? Is with that curiosity and experimentation?
yeah, it does depend a little bit. It is definitely based in curiosity, but I say it depends because different people are different amounts of reserved
Mhm.
about the creative arts process. So the more comfortable people are with the mark making and creative um, concepts, the more I'll let them or encourage them to just dive in and go and just get curious. But the people who are a little bit more timid about it or feel really self-conscious about it, I'll generally guide them a little bit more to just kind of ease them into it. And then they'll see, oh, okay, everything's okay. I'm enjoying myself. And then as they start to kind of flow a little bit, then it's easier to open them up. So yeah, it really kind of depends on how the person is showing up. Um, but the thing I do start out with always is to remind them that this is a non-judgmental space, and that they themselves are to try and notice if they're being self-judgmental, um, and to try and quiet that. It's hard, but yeah, and it's doable, especially because I'm not telling them to draw a cat. I'm not telling them to, I'm just telling them to scribble, and so definitely makes it more approachable in that way, because the process is definitely the point here.
Yes. And it sounds like too part of the process is shutting off your mind and not thinking about stuff. And so I guess I want to know a little bit about that approach, because something that I have found in my own journey and my own need for nervous system regulation was that you can't outthink your nervous system. Like you can't outwit it, and you trying to reason with yourself. It doesn't work in that way. And so you need to find these outlets. And so I suspect when people come to you that they're kind of in this state of fight or flight already. So you're asking them to scribble, but how do you, like, what state are they in, I guess is my question, when they come to you, and what is your process to get them to trust and understand that they actually can't think their way out? Because I think that's often really hard for us to wrap our brain around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great question. People definitely, yeah, they come to me generally dysregulated in some form or another. And some people can have been dealing with pretty traumatic things going on in their lives, illness, but then others are really just, they just kind of have too much going on in their heads, and they can't seem to sort it all out. So they're just, they're feeling a little bit lost. And a lot of the people that I work with, they have at least some familiarity with meditation and other practices like that. And so I do try to express to them that this is kind of like a moving meditation, essentially. So we are here to just be present and to allow things to happen. I often will tell them to let the hand lead, not think about it. I also invite them to, yeah, to not think before they create. It's reacting to a gut response, because sometimes the prompts are like, people think, well, how am I supposed to answer that with a drawing? It's like, um, draw, you know, let me see, like, draw what it feels like outside today, or scribble what it feels like outside today. So what do you mean by that? Well, just whatever that is, notice it, feel it, and then just pick a color and just do whatever your hand wants to do. Um, yeah, and it really centers you and gets you to get outside of yourself a little bit, or just let go of all that analysis. And I'm always reminding people as they're working to notice where their mind is. Are they thinking about what they need to do later? Are they thinking about something that happened in the past? And just coming back to the current sensations, noticing the senses, the sounds, the texture of the page and all that. And it just helps people get back into the moment. And then when they see what they're creating, little insights start to pop up. And then that's really fascinating.
Do you have any favorite insights or ahas from some of your clients that have been through this process with you that you can
Um,
share, of course?
yeah, yeah. The one that comes to mind is I was working with a woman and she just felt like discombobulated. I think that's even the word she used. She just felt like, I don't know, there's too many things. And she's actually very well versed in um, regulation. She's a yoga teacher. So she knows what she's doing in terms of that. But like everything she tried just didn't really help her in that moment. And then as we worked together, she noticed, oh, there's like some funky relationship things that had happened for her recently. And those things were bothering her, more than she had realized. And it kind of just helped surface some things because she just noticed some shapes in what she was making, and it just brought a couple memories up, and then she was able to just talk about it a little bit, um, and just continue to express on the page. So yeah, it's amazing how, she had no idea, she knew these things happened, right? But they weren't yesterday necessarily. But it was one thing or a couple things that were feeding into how she was feeling today. And, those things accumulate. So letting them come out and just, um, yeah, you're letting them come out so that they can be there. You've now kind of noticed and processed, and now you're like, okay, I understand that that's what that is. And so then throughout the rest of your day, you're not having to keep thinking about that thing, even though you didn't know you were thinking about it. There was just some little thing bothering you. Yeah, so it's just amazing how it can just totally change the rest of your day and the rest of your week after you've done that.
I love that. It's a really beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah.
So it sounds like are these solo classes or are there broader experiences? I'm just curious what the overall structure of this healing process is like within your business.
Yeah, so I have a few different ways that I work with people. At the level I was talking about there, that was a one-on-one session. So I will work with people one-on-one. And then with that situation, I will open up with, what's going on with them, what is the general feeling that they have, what is it that they want to work on, and then I will select a um, select an exercise that can tend to be good for helping with that kind of emotion or thing that they're working on. And I'll just walk them through that. And then I'll adjust, depending on, so it's usually an hour session. And so depending on how things are going, we'll continue to adjust and do possibly a few different exercises. And then I also have sort of these containers or one-off workshops where I'll have, it could be a one-day workshop online, sometimes in person, and that'll be more just like a theme. So, something about spring renewal, perhaps, that kind of thing. And so there we're, not able to go as deep, of course, which with each person, but each person is still able to have the experience, have a sense of rest and relaxation, and hopefully have a couple of their own aha moments. So yeah, so there's the group setting, and then I also do. I also have my membership. So in there, I have. It's really just like a self-led sort of experience. I'm there to help out and connect with the people, but they can go in there and go in daily, perhaps, and find like a 5-minute prompt and just kind of work through it themselves. And they can, of course, always work with me one-on-one and kind of move around that whole space. So yeah, there's just a bunch of different ways that we can work together.
Okay, I love that. And I'm curious, this is not a super relevant question, but I just want to know, do they get to play with different types of media when they're with you, or is it just like pen and paper? Is it colored pencils, crayons, oil pens? Like what kind of media do they get to work with?
Yeah, no, this is totally relevant.
Okay, good. I'm like, I don't know if this is a weird question, but I want to know.
No, not at all. Because actually, yeah, they work with all sorts of different kinds of media, and it actually often will depend on what we're trying to work on. Different kinds of media are good for processing different kinds of feelings and emotions. So yeah, sometimes again, if it's one on one, I will generally ask them. First of all, it depends on the situation. If they want to just work with what they have, they can work with what they have, but they can also purchase something if they don't. And a lot of the materials aren't that expensive, but yeah, we'll work with acrylics or oil pastels or paint pens, all sorts of things, and even going to things like molding clay and creating things in that way. Um, yeah, so it really depends on the situation. And then when I'm in person, I'll usually just bring a bunch of supplies. I find acrylics tend to be a lot of fun because I think it brings you back to your childhood a little bit more. People who do not typically paint, it's really a nice way to just get into that artisty kind of feeling and tap into something that's just different than what you do in your norm. That being said, when I'm working online in a group sort of experience, I always make sure that they can just come with a pen and paper as well, because even just coming with pen and paper is completely valuable, and you can get a lot out of that as well. So yeah, I mean, anything and everything just about is really the short answer to that.
Yeah. Okay. And so you mentioned that the different types help with different, not issues, but different challenges, different things that we're working through. Is there anything like, is there a specific pattern to that, or does it just kind of depend on where the person's at when they come to you? I'm very intrigued by that concept. So elaborate, please.
Yeah, when I learned about that myself, I was also I felt the same way as you. Yeah, so what it is there's some medium are better kind of attuned to emotional processing. So if you're trying to yeah, just release maybe some emotional stress or anxiety, it can be better to use something like paint, where it's more flowy and you can kind of um things can sort of just flow and come out in like this sort of smooth way. But if you're more focused on like a really specific worry or trying to really process something that happened more specifically, then sometimes something like a pen or colored pencils or markers or oil pastels can be better, because you can get a little bit more into like a minute kind of creation, and it lights up different parts of the brain, so it's really kind of fascinating. um yeah, it's so cool that you can kind of tap into different parts of your brain and different parts of your psyche just depending on what you're using.
Yeah, that's incredible. I had no idea that that was a thing at all.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because you work with people regardless of whether it's personal, something personal they're working with, or they're looking for nervous system regulation to expand and grow in their professional roles and in their businesses. So when they go to take this into everyday life, how do they, like, how would one best transfer this into their life? Like if let's say they're waiting for a session with you, or maybe they, you know, I don't know, they're just in the moment and they really need something. How are you equipping people to be able to pivot in the moment with this particular modality?
Yeah, well, so there's a couple things. I mean, when it comes to an actual actionable activity, um, you know, again, pen and paper they're just usually there for you, you know? So say you're in a stressful meeting, you can doodle in the margins of your notebook, just allowing that to come out can help you process, just some scribbles and things like that. But then when at the same time, what's sort of happening in the background is after they've had a session with me, they are becoming more able to handle those situations as well. So, similar to how a meditation practice is like practice, they call it a practice because it's practice, right? For everyday life. So, um, you're able to process things better. You're able to think a little bit more creatively in this case. The fact that you're being creative and trying new things in art in your notebook, wherever it is that you're doing it, um, just that experience helps create again these new neural pathways in your brain, where then you are going to be better equipped in the future in challenging situations to handle things in a creative way. Um, and even just, whatever sort of challenges in work that are not necessarily interpersonal, like you're just trying to figure out how do I get this code to work, going back to my kind of like previous life. It just helps you kind of tap into new ways of thinking about things and trying new things. So yeah. Yeah, it spills into everything.
Mm-hmm. So this is probably going to date both of us, but I just have to ask because we live in this world of high tech, right? So as you're saying, paper and pen is always there for you. Well, I've got notebooks right here and pens and things that I can do that with. But there's a lot of younger people who don't. And usually all they have is an iPad or a phone with them. And so this is where I said I'm going to probably date both of us because half of the people listening won't even know what it means when I say a paint program. But would you encourage people like that? Like if you don't have pen and paper, while that is definitely the best modality because it's about the connection, would that be a good fail safe? Like they probably don't have a paint app, but there's probably some kind of like drawing or, you know, artistry app on your phone. I don't know what they would be called. Certainly not paint, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, wow. I definitely like, yeah, I'm just thinking like, do I always have paper with me? I mean, maybe not always, but yeah, if I'm in a meeting, I always do. But anyway, um, yeah, absolutely. It's, whatever it is that you have, whatever the most useful thing is the thing that you have, the thing that's accessible to you. So, um, there's like note-taking apps I know where you can write with a pen, with like one of those magic pens or whatever, and any of those drawing apps would be totally great. And you can, even if you don't have a pen, just using your finger to create some scribbles on there. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter whatever, yes, I think pen and paper there's a more tactile experience there, but something is better than nothing. So whatever it is that you do have access to, go for it. It's not going to hurt. That's for sure.
Yes, I agree. So if somebody was listening right now and they were feeling like they didn't really know where to get started with all of this, I feel like I already know the answer based on everything that we've talked about. But if they're sitting there just thinking, man, I really could use this and I need a way to just allow myself to let go, or maybe it feels like they just can't put a pen down on paper. For some reason, there's some kind of block there because they're so tightly wound, because I know at one point that was me as well. What would you tell that person?
Well, that's a really great question. I mean, first of all, just starting is like, that's just the hardest part. Like you said, I mean, just starting. Um, with a lot of my clients, I tell them, if you don't know where to start, pretend like the pen fell on the page and you just made a mark. And so now the page isn't blank anymore. And so you can kind of go from there and keep going. But of course, the other way is to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help support. I think a really great starting place is my membership or one of my workshops that are online. It just is really, I hold your hand through it, especially in the very beginning. Um, just getting started, reaching out to someone for some help, and just doing it is, I think remembering that you can do more good than harm by giving it a try.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's making me want to go draw. Maybe I'll do that today.
Yeah, you should.
If there is somebody who is particularly resistant to this idea, maybe they're listening and they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not going to go color. I'm not a child. I want you to explain to everybody why you believe that this is so incredibly important, whether you know you need to regulate your nervous system or you don't know at all, whether you're completely disconnected.
That's a great question. I would say that creating art, first of all, there's a lot of scientific backing to it, but the process of creating art helps move emotions. And again, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. The art itself is not the point, it's the process of it. It's this release. There have been a multitude of studies at this point of expressing that cortisol levels get lowered just by creating art. And that's really amazing. I mean, you know, people going to just a couple of art classes can really move out of deep depression, just, as a little bit of a starting point. So if something feels off and you don't really know why, you don't necessarily know what it is, you just, like I was describing about myself, like you're just not happy. You don't, and you there's no clear reason why. Creating art can help get to that, even if it doesn't necessarily bring you that specific aha, like the woman I described who realized there was this relationship thing that was kind of at the root of what was going on for her. So even if you can't name it, something is still moving through you and out, and maybe later on you'll be able to name it. There's just so much science behind it. I think that's one of my biggest things. Like it's so worth trying. And it's one of the easiest, most accessible ways to try. And you don't have to spend, tons and tons of money doing it, and going to, look, I love therapy. I have a therapist, and, a lot of times you get stuck answering the same questions with them. It depends, so maybe you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on therapy as much, if you're able to just release. And honestly, a lot of my people, when they have worked with me, then they'll then take that to their therapist and say, "Oh my God, like this came out for me as I was doing this," and then they can get into something different. Again, when you're talking and thinking about things, this is something you had mentioned earlier, like this continual thinking and trying to solve something. Very often you end up circling over the same things over and over again, whereas this creative free process allows you to just try something completely different and tap into something different and find a new way that will be able to help. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope everyone listening will take a few minutes today to just try it. Just try it on your own. And if you feel something, reach out to Vicky. She's doing some incredible stuff. Now, if somebody is ready to connect with you, Vicky, how can they best reach out and work with you?
Yeah, so I do hang out a lot on Instagram, though recently took a little bit of a break. You know, Instagram can be
Yeah.
how it can be. But I'm on Instagram at Wildly Creative Wellness, and my website is wildlycreativewellness.com. So those are my main places. You can reach out to me in the DMs or fill out my contact form, whatever it is that works best for you. I am there and I'll answer. And yeah, would love to chat.
It's beautiful. And we'll make sure that all of this information, as always, is in the show notes for you. So it's nice and easy to get in touch. And if you're not ready yet, also give her a follow. She's on Instagram. So she is easy to follow and to see what she's up to. So, Vicky, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for pouring into our audience. I so appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rebel Rise podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and invite your friends to join us next week. This is your time. Now get out there and rise.